Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Laura Prada from the Telesur studios here in Caracas, in Venezuela. We begin with our news, so you stay with us. And we begin in Chile, in the capital, Santiago de Chile, because more people have been injured by repression of the ongoing protest against the government of President Sebastián Piñera. A peaceful protest that started in Plaza Italia, Italy Square, was attacked by Carabineros agents who fired tear gas to disperse the citizens who were heading towards La Moneda Palace. The violence left wounded, who were then admitted to the Memory House London 38. Some also verbally confronted the police in a call for them to stop repression. The Unity Social Board and other social organizations called for a national strike on Tuesday and Wednesday in order to increase pressure on the government, demanding a resignation of the President Sebastián Piñera and a creation of a constituent assembly. And the president of the Board of Chilean Doctors Association, Patricio Mesa, said that the number of people with eye injuries as consequence of violent repression of demonstrations is disproportionately high in Chile when compared to other countries seeing protests with similar characteristics around the world.
What we understand is that there are a great number of people who have been injured. The former health minister acknowledged 3 days ago that there have been more than 3,500 people injured. Our records show the number of people that have been subject to serious ophthalmic damage to an eye is more than 130. We've seen that every day we have around 12 new patients with severe damage to an eye. What worries us when we look at the statistics is that in other countries where there have been protests with similar characteristics to those here in Chile, there have been significantly fewer patients with these kinds of eye injury. The number of cases we've had in Chile is much greater than in other international situations. That's why we're certain that the correct protocol for the use of non-lethal weapons isn't being followed to maintain public order. So we're calling for their use to be suspended until the public can be assured that the correct protocols are being followed to protect, for one, protesters, but also the institutions that use these weapons.
And the United Nations mission that was due to arrive this Monday to assess human rights situations and denunciations in Chile announced that this arrival will be delayed. On Monday afternoon, the National Institute of Human Rights of Chile reported that the delegation sent by the High Representative of United Nations for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, the mission will not arrive this Monday. This mission, that is composed by 3 experts, aims to examine complaints of human rights violations and was going to meet with various actors and gather information on the measures needed to address the situation in the Latin American country due to these massive repression acts. The announcement comes in the midst of massive anti-neoliberal protests which are being heavily repressed by the state security forces. And a large crowd of demonstrators gathered near Chile's presidential palace, La Moneda, that started this Monday morning just before President Sebastián Piñera announced a reshuffle of his ministerial cabinet. The protesters were again met with repression, even though the state of emergency was lifted last Friday. Police set up a security perimeter around the palace and around La Moneda and then fired tear gas into crowds. These crowds were trapped in narrow streets and a number of people have been injured. Many protesters say President's reshuffle was just more of the same. These images on your screens were from this morning when people were starting to gather around the La Moneda Palace and in Plaza Italia in order to reach the palace and to express their discontent with the neoliberal policies of President Sebastián Piñera, among other issues about other economical announcements that President Piñera made.
You can see it on the streets. There is no possibility of this fading. It was mere makeup. We bring, as I said, the people of Chile are betting on a constituent assembly and a new constitution made for all Chileans.
The new cabinet ministers are more of the same. They are the same as them. They leave through one door and come back through the other. The problem here is the economic model. That is the big problem we have. Those who are in now and those who were sacked, those who left, are the defenders of this system.
And as we were saying, President Sebastián Piñera reshuffled 8 of the 24 ministers of his cabinet, including the Interior Minister Andrés Chadwick, who was replaced, and also the target of harsh criticism due to the highly repressive methods of the security forces against the crowds of Chileans. The Minister of Economy was also replaced, and most of the 8 ministerial changes were swaps among existing members of the cabinet. No opposition figures were brought into the government, as many had predicted. And from Venezuela, President Nicolás Maduro expressed his condemnation to the crisis in Chile and expressed his solidarity with the Chilean people who are the victims of this heavy repression by the authorities of the country. Chileans have been demonstrating in rejection of the neoliberal politics of the country's government since last week. Let's hear what President Nicolás Maduro had to say, the message he sent to the Chilean people.
Fíjense ustedes lo que está pasando en Chile.
Look what is happening in Chile. In Chile you see the collapse of the neoliberal system, neoliberal state model. It's a non-just say. They got 40 years of the savage neoliberalism, and now we're saying the Chilean people have 20 days of the anti-neoliberal popular insurrection. The Chilean people have no right to public education. Boys, girls have no right to public education, and everything is privatized in education. Everything. It is possible for a young man from an ordinary family to get to study. He's not entitled to public health. He's not entitled to social benefits, to a dignified retirement.
And now we move on to Bolivia, where the President Evo Morales attended to the massive rally held in La Paz this Monday evening, where peasants, indigenous miners, intellectuals, neighbors, and Jews showed their support to the president after his electoral triumph on October 20th elections. This massive rally was set by the miners' union that were marching towards the capital La Paz in support of President Evo Morales, as he called them, to protect the country against this call from the opposition to make disturbances to the peace of the country. Let's see other news that also took place during this rally, because President Evo Morales also was there, accompanied by his vice president, and who was also elected, Álvaro García Linera, and other authorities. And different leaders took the floor at the event, uniting in the call to defend the victory of Morales in a peaceful way in the face of the strikes and blockades that are taking place in different cities after the opposition's dissatisfaction with the electoral results. Morales won 340 municipalities of the almost 30 major, and also emphasized the majority in the Senate. And when in this rally, Evo Morales spoke to the crowds and said that he thanked for their support, and this electoral victory was also for them. Let's hear exactly the precise words that President Morales used.
Como siempre, hermanas y hermanos.
As always, sisters and brothers, we won in the first round in the elections, and that is the conscience of Bolivian people. This morning, Brother Alvaro reported with the latest data that from the 340 municipalities that we won in almost 300 across Bolivia. We won the elections in 85% of municipalities. We have a majority in the Senate, a majority in the Chamber of Deputies. We won all 5 the special Bolivian indigenous movement regions, 100%. That's a force, that's a unity, that's a commitment of the Bolivian people to our process of change.
The Bolivian president also thanked international support expressed by over 90 countries around the world.
I want to say to you, sisters and brothers, this afternoon, President of Mexico called me. He sent a greeting to all and he greeted the triumph of the Bolivian people. He invited us to work together for the development of Mexico and Bolivia. Also, Brother Maduro called me. He sent a greeting for all those convinced of the triumph of Bolivia. Brothers, I have communicated with the President-elect of Argentina, Brother Alberto Fernandez, who sends greetings, delighted with this great triumph in Bolivia. We congratulate and we salute the triumph of the Fernandez in Argentina.
With this information, we go for a first break here from the South. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Telesur English and on my account at Laura P. Telesur. Just stay with us. We are back with our news and we go now to Argentina, where the winners of the presidential elections, Alberto Fernandez, met with his defeated rival and current president Mauricio Macri. Fernandez arrived at the Casa Rosada Palace to begin to make arrangements for the transition of power. The president-elect has promised a sharp move away from Macri's neoliberal policies when he takes office on December the 10th. But he will still have to confront Argentina's deep financial and currency crisis. And following the Fernandez victory, the Argentinian peso opened slightly stronger against the US dollar. Nonetheless, the Central Bank of Argentina announced new currency controls reportedly due to concerns over outflows of foreign exchange reserve accelerating after Mauricio Macri was voted out of office.
Effective today, we've reduced to $200 per month the maximum amount that can be purchased by individuals with prior authorization from the central bank. I know that this measure, even being a temporary one, is very strict and impacts a lot of people. The goal, I repeat, is to preserve the reserves during this transition period and until the new government defines its economic policies and the uncertainty dissipates.
And the new managing director of the International Monetary Fund, Kristalina Georgieva, was congratulated Alberto Fernandez on his victory. She tweeted, "We look forward to engaging with his administration to tackle Argentina's economic challenges." Before the elections, the International Monetary Fund suspended payments on its huge $57 billion bailout deal with President Macri. And now we move on and we change topic. We go to the Caribbean because 2 people were killed as several hundred police demonstrated in Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince, for better salaries on Sunday, while anti-government marchers also took to the streets. We warned that the images you are about to see may be disturbing. The first victim was shot during the protest demanding that President Jovenel Moïse step down. The gunman who reportedly shot that unidentified person was then beaten to death and set on fire in the streets. Many looked on in horror as the body burned. Several police fired a volley of gunshots and tear gas into the crowd of anti-government protesters.
See what they did to us? After the killing, here's the result. You cannot shoot more than the Cité Soleil militants.
And now we move on to Brazil. Remains at the top of the environmental crisis agenda in South America. This time, marine wildlife and local businesses are being affected by the oil spill in the northeast of the country. Brazilian beaches have reported a terrific quantity of oil washing ashore as efforts are made by the government and volunteers to clean up the sludge. Officials said that the measures applied to keep the oil off the shore have been ineffective. The 2-month struggle has also affected the conditions of the local and the fish market.
With this oil here inside the mangroves, life won't be able to proliferate, life won't be able to expand like it's always been able to proliferate and expand in this food chain here. So the biome of the land and the sea is here, so this is a disaster. This oil can't remain in our lives.
And now we change topic. United States President Donald Trump was in Chicago this Monday for a speech and fundraiser, and a crowd of protesters numbering well into the thousands gathered outside Trump Hotel and Tower in the Midwestern city. The U.S. President gave a speech at the International Association of Chiefs of Police conference at McCormick Place. Between 3,000 and 6,000 people protested against Trump's first visit to Chicago since he assumed the presidency. The gathering was by and large peaceful because there were very few Trump supporters to argue with. But 2 people were taken into custody after apparently attacking a man waving a Trump flag. The president criticized Chicago Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson for declining to attend the conference of police chiefs from around the country. Chicago is a sanctuary city where local authorities don't cooperate with immigration officials, including the famous ICE.
Donald Trump has got to go, and if you think he loved the Chicago Police Department, he doesn't. He never speaks out for any injustice that you talk about that go on in some areas of the police department.
I'm out here today with my group, Good Kids Mad City. We're an anti-gun violence youth-led organization, and a lot of us are specifically affected by the policies and the rules that Donald Trump has done since he's been in office. We're mostly black, a lot of us are queer, some of us are brown people. So to be in a city, to be in a town where Trump has not only notoriously have put Chicago in his mouth to spit out words of hate, to talk about us being this violent city, but for this to be his first time in his 4 years of office to actually come here, and not only just come here, but talk to the police and not even talk to the citizens that he continuously talks so much stuff about is offensive.
In Barcelona, Spain, hundreds of protesters demanded the release of 9/17 movement leaders at one of the city's main transport hubs. The demonstration was organized by the Committees for the Defense of the Republic group of the St. Sanz train station. The independence movement activists were protesting against the Spanish Supreme Court sentence of political and civic leaders to 13 years in jail for the promotion and organization of the region's independence referendum in 2017. The protesters demanded the political prisoners' immediate release.
We are here to defend our rights and our freedoms. We believe that the Spanish government is abusing us with so much repression, and simply because we voted. They have done something unfair. They have sent people to prison just because they defend rights and freedoms, and the people don't agree with this kind of injustice. And all our demonstration, what we are demanding is freedom, freedom and freedom.
Well, the same things will happen as the previous 2 times. It will be failed. I want to trust that European justice is separate from politics, something that is not in case in here. I mean, here, what a politician said is what the justice does. We still have some Francoist elements.
Time for a very short break. You stay tuned with us. We are back with our news. Botswana's opposition umbrella for democratic change, UDC, has said it will launch a legal challenge against the outcome of last week's general elections. Results announced by the Electoral Commission gave a decisive victory to the ruling Botswana Democratic Party, BDP, which has been in power since the country gained independence from Britain in 1966. UDC claims that the election was marred with widespread fraud and irregularities, which gave an advantage to the BDP. The BDP, however, denied any wrongdoing and accused the UDC of being sore losers. We move now to Ethiopia, where leaders of the Orthodox Church have asked the government to deal with resurgent ethnic violence in the East African country. The call comes after more than 60 people were killed during protests last week. The demonstration that started as anti-government protests spiraled into ethnic violence. 8 members of the Orthodox Church were killed when protesters attacked a cathedral in the east of the country.
Prime Minister Abiy's statement on Saturday night was very disappointing. It was very weak. He didn't mention the culprits and didn't show sympathy for the church either. It was a useless statement. Seeing the government act this way makes us sad.
And police in Morocco have arrested 7 people who are part of a group that was planning to carry out attacks in and around the city of Casablanca. According to authorities, the group planned to launch a series of attacks targeting sensitive infrastructure and strategic sites on land and at sea. Several weapons and bomb-making chemicals were seized from the suspects' hideout. An operation has been launched to arrest possible accomplices.
They were targeting the interior of Casablanca, and then the suspects would have withdraw points in the mountain areas in the north, which they had visited numerous times, near Chefin and Kwazan.
Like this, we come to the end of this Repress. Remember, you can find this and much more other information on our website, wholesale-english.net, where you can find out free opinion articles, watch special interviews, and find so much more material that we produce especially for you. So you continue with us with Telesur, always together, connecting our global thousands. And next time, thank you for watching.